Oh, really, really great, mate. Yeah, it's really, really good. Very beautiful. And it just is a beautiful piece inside, actually. You know, it's amazing because the natives always say, of course, that the medicine so really works, which in their mind, of course, the word medicine is intention. And, of course, you know, communication is the response that we get back, not our intention. And that, and so we're always tuning into the response that we have. And this is how we keep self company. And in the native original teaching, of course, it's the greatest solitude that we have inside ourselves, inner life, is our greatest company. Yes. And so that's a great deep cheerfulness, and that's something that we do ourselves. And it's like this is the captain of the ship. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But, you know, I think that, you know, we were talking in shows a little bit about the structure of behaviour and language. And, you know, it's really, really important that people have the ability to be able to clear away things where there can have been obstruction and things, and that they can learn how to have done this themselves. But if they had gone somewhere and they just were acted on, and that was only part of their story, that they went somewhere and they got acted on, that really was pretty weak, actually, because that person was interfering. They did something and maybe it took something away for a little while or whatever, and it helped somebody, but it really didn't help them, actually. They were not ever imparted with the very things which was necessary for them to do themselves. And the most important moment in our life and our being with each other really is the instructions that's being given in our moment of being with each other, that you're carrying these instructions out, you know, after this moment. And so that this is the very most important component of our being in the original sense. And that medicine, or this word intention, and the response that you're getting back is really medicine in the tradition, not sort of a pill that you could go get from a cabinet or having been acted on, which the original people feel that white people are sort of very, very superstitious. And how could they? It's sort of not logical because they're not other than aware that this is something that they're doing themselves. And they can only have been focused in a moment in time in the past where perhaps something really worked and it was perhaps somebody acted on them, and that's their story. So what's missing really is sort of lobotomized, and so it's not something the person really is aware of. So if you strip someone to be half naked, as he is, he's the one who's half naked, and he doesn't know of his own ugliness or anything necessarily, but he could be always thinking of something which is beauty, but he hasn't thought of anything about himself as being beauty. He could be just an absolute, like, mess, and how would he like to be with that? I mean, all these things which are values people have in their head is forms of chatter and beliefs and all sorts of things. And it adds up to all the 10,000 things. And then the people sort of can be sort of have been upset, and rightfully so, because if they're not, that means they don't really love themselves. But if you can be irritated a little bit by something, then you're fully alive and it's in your totality. And even if some mistake is made, you're really caring very much to be in your whole of yourself. But wherever any principle is broken inside, that's the structure of anger. And then it's possible for us just to have the ability to be able to transform this, which is some prejudice, and really do everything we can to take hold of the opportunity to learn to respond ever more effectively where we are. And you certainly could say that where somebody is noted to be in their beingness, fully emotionally present, and then it's an outward lived meditation. And this is where we really, all of us, need to be more in an outward lived meditation. And the natives say that this really works nice, if you actually really have assisted to help build expectant trust, and that you're doing everything you can to be able to create a team, and you have a lot of team building skills and things with everything you do. But if you do, as the medicine person, she or he really, really is aware very much of body language, and that humans sort of are multi-channeled in their being, and then there could be sorts of incongruities. There could be simultaneous incongruities where somebody is saying that they're going to go do something, but they're shaking their head no. Or someone that's a simultaneous incongruity, or someone in the native tradition is taught to be observed of another type of incongruity in a person's language, detract, and that is wherever anything is said, and then what happens around this. The native medicine person, she, as cloud teachers, or him, they're aware of whether something is congruent or not by what's next. So is what's next actually congruent, or do you see where you are, you're being requested to do some things and take charge, where you can see nobody's taking charge, and are you doing this? Are you following through? Because if you are, then congruency, it's a parallel processing, and you're getting the instruction, right? But for instance, like if you have anger, the anger, if it was because I'm in a principle. So we'll just leave it at the structure, that's all. But that you could be applying some structure and allowing another to go through something and feel better. And at the end of our session with each other today, it's possible do you really feel much, much better about something and other things, which you really can have the resource to be able to achieve what's necessary, because you really do need to cut through complexity with simple solutions. So the first thing is just simply recognizing that some inner principle could have been broken, and if you were too principled, of course, that's not going to be good. But if you're not principled enough either, that's not going to be good either. You have to have a generosity. You have to have lucidity, to give with lucidity, because pearls won't necessarily be received by a swine. So you have to have lucidity. And then you have to be about discernment. And these three virtues are all put together, of course, in your whole being, the matrix. But it doesn't mean that we have stories of people who really did everything they could, like Krishna or Joan of Arc or Helen Troy or any of these people, or even Helen Keller, for instance, or Margaret Mead, or Virginia Livingston Wheeler, or Virginia Satir, or Helen Keller, Madame Curie. You've got Florence Nightingale, and you've got a whole range of people who are what the natives call either Winuks or Burduks, or people that were very, very balanced. I mean, they had their male and their female in balance. And these are people around us who really are marvellous and are really loved and well-liked. And it is because, they do have a pattern in their being, and whether they're aware of it or not, but we could talk just a little bit about this, But whenever that you've been sort of a little bit upset, and things have been going on, it was because some sort of a need or some principle was broken, right? If it were time, it would be just that you could be frustrated. If you were anxious, it could be because you could feel not sufficient enough to do something. So each of these emotions are not anger, but that any state could be fused with a few emotions, but that certainly tough love exists in love, where we could see that someone to be saved, unless in a situation where you could be found saving someone in the water, they could clamber on you and drown you, or have drowned you, unless you were able to block that person. So everybody does understand that there could be something, that's like this, But the very thing is, as someone who would do search and rescue, they have to know that that people who are needing to be rescued, they can be suffered from all sorts of circumstances, things, which is the stress, which we've been talking a bit about as far as actually whole brain functioning is concerned, and for them not necessarily having come from whole brain patterning, But if a person was sort of anger, well, that could be good. But if it was a pattern of just a stayed circumstance of any emotion, like even a set smile, which she has to always have a smile, and he always has to have a frown, these patterns are not good because they're just set patterns, see, but not anything of itself. But you should have the ability to be able to use all of these things. But if you have something, the principle broken, and you would have been in, other than remained in your creative self, then there would have been limited mind function entertained. And this in the native tradition is called indulgence. It's called sort of like metaphors like riding the appetite of a beast. And it's called lost. It's called also rabbit. And rabbit says, eagle, eagle, don't eat me. Because woof, 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 don't eat me. And it gets out of the hole just for a short period of time, and it's there for 2 minutes, and it's going, I'm not even going to be here for 2 minutes. It says to the coyote, I'm not going to be here for 2 minutes. I'm going to be right back in the hole. Don't eat me. Please don't eat me. I'm not even here for 2 minutes. It's going to be coming over there. You see, that's called rabbit. And, could we say that Tavistock really could be very interested in rabbit? Tavistock can be interested in rabbit because if you could put rabbit into people, then they're just running flat trap inside themselves, and they cannot know, that the roof is leaking really bad on them. They'll run away because that, the whole person's been other than kept whole because they've only ever had 440, which I would say stop. Don't listen to any more of that stuff because it's just a waste of time. It only has a sheer energy in it that yeast loves, so why give yeast the attention? That's just the Grim Reaper. And so all states of your other than being in your balance as much as you can is really excellent, but you should also be able to notice a place where you can be heard and be able to let others know that because then that avoids that and things can be safe. So steps that we can use to change things, that's very important. And whatever it is that's life-serving, that's really existing because everything really does have a positive adaptive reason behind it. And we need to be able to find out what this is and keep this, of course, because there could be something going on that does have this, of course, which everything does, but there could be some secondary negative consequence going on which is unwanted. And if there's stuff going on like that in your life, well, then this is a session which you should really be paying attention to, because how relaxed your shoulders are, how relaxed your tummy actually is in the moment right now. Can you relax your shoulders more? Or have they been really tense? Are your arms folded? Are you fidgeting? Are you just looking at something in front of you all the time, like they do in these institutes? Or, is there a lot of fidgeting and moving and all sorts of things? Or too much stillness, not moving, like you're in a catatonic sort of state and things? but that how relaxed you are and things are flowing is important, because this is whole brain functioning. Because if, as pleasure is and interest is existing within you, you do have whole brain patterning, and it is happening, and you are creating a state of heaven around you where two children are playing. And the state of being between these two children is a playful, then the space is existing as heaven. This is the definition in the native tradition. It's a state of being. It's not a play. It's not a geographical spot, up or down. But these are judgments, and it's quite funny to them when they hear people talking about a higher self, a lower self. You've got a higher self. What do you mean you've got a lower self? They think that's very, very funny. But I think it's really funny, of course, also, too, because people, in nutrition, they have no idea of grammar or even language. And you've even got people, apparently, that are doctors and things, and are uneducated fully. They don't even know that food is plural, for instance. Isn't that amazing? And they want to put S's on the end of everything. But so you've got lots and lots of stuff going on, honest to God, and where things have been happening to you and things have been unchanged necessarily, would love for them to be changed now, once and for all time. You know? Don't go back. You can't. It's impossible. You know what I mean? Try as hard as you can to go back. You can't. But you can reframe whatever is going on and make sure to take hold of the opportunity to do this. Because that's the mature person where you are in your relationship and your being. It's not up to the immature person. You've really got to do what you can to actually give some instruction. And, you have to have who before what, and what before when, and when before where, and where before how, and just leave why alone for, maybe 1 or 2 years, right? Until you've got it down more sensory specifically. But if you use these few steps here, you can clear things away. Certainly, first of all, you can't be thinking other people's thoughts, so stop that. 90% of thinking is how other people are thinking. You can't do that. It's ridiculous. You have to stop all of that sort of thinking. And then when you thought that could have been a trigger, and then 10,000 times after that, you've had a pattern of doing it to yourself afterward. It happened once, and then you did it over and over and over again. It's really bad, actually. Terrible. Horrific, actually. And that this is called, in the native tongue, it's called indulgence. You're indulging. You could do something else, but you're not, and you're just sort of pooping in a nappy sort of thing, or you're asking everyone to have an experiment where you won't wipe your butt, for the next few weeks or something, and will that be okay? Of course, it isn't. It's horrendous, actually. But there's a beautiful way to be, and this is our original self. And as we're living in our original self, we're able to be aware, first of all, that you can change any stuck state. Let's be. Providing that you elicit a large enough and more powerful resource state. Okay? You have to be able to do this. And as you've got a resource state, then you've got whole brain functioning. So if you do a Bradley Manning to someone, you're not going to have anything after that. If you do a, Abu Gabu to someone, you're not going to have anything after that. If you do a Gautama to anybody, you really are not going to have anything after that. You don't. What is collected is just useless. All right? Now, why is it? It is useless, I've got to tell you, because you would never know what you have. And everybody will tell you that under coercion, you will not know what you've got. As a doctor will tell you, they'll find out what has gone into the body, and they'll say, all these drugs, and then they'll ask themselves, how the hell can we know what's going on at all and what's affecting what? Because you've got a cocktail. and it can't be ruled out. So that's what's going on a bit, isn't it? So we have to clear away things with a simple solution, don't we? So let's just go through things just for a moment in a few steps. First, just simply, whenever you felt a little bit upset about something, it's just a red light, that's all, on your dash. Why? Because you're in your omnipresent self. When you're in the company of good people, you have better serotonin for days afterward, and everybody does. Everyone who does sweat lodge and these things, and you're around good, strong leadership, your own serotonin, and everyone around you also, you have more serotonin. You have better patterns and things of being, which is more whole brain functioning. So you're in your omnipresent self. You simply are able to be observed and this of yourself, and it's a David or happy face. A lot of people call me in the native tradition here, and in India and places like that, wherever I go. It's Baba, Babaji, and everybody's Babaji, in Africa, in Morocco, and in all northwestern Africa and everywhere I've been there, everybody just calls me Rasta. And the natives here all call me Happy Face. So, and then lots of people know me as Dr. David Jupp. But, you could hear your own name being called inside yourself, and then you've joined this omnipresent self, and you're able to observe everything. But when you're in good company, you're just naturally doing this, right? You're more in your omnipresent self. But you're just seeing a red light on the dashboard, that's all. If something came up and loomed a little bit, it's possible just to remember that there's something ever more truthful, which is mutually beneficial. That's important. And that first you'll get rid of anything that's in your life over time, that if there was any thinking that other people are thinking, you have to get rid of all that thinking, because in the native tradition they call that mind reading, and it's really, really bad when somebody doesn't have any training in it. But you have to have some training if you're mind reading, otherwise you should stop all that, because there is implicit and explicit mind reading technique, which is possible for us to teach someone, which we do, but that really is something that you really have to have good skill at, because otherwise there could be a lot of errors. People are not able to be observed of things going on internally and externally, with body language and analog as well as dialogue. But so you have got rid of 90% of most everything, because basically you can't really have anything anybody else said. That's ridiculous. You can't be thinking what they thought, and they can have said some things and they were not quite, feeling state right themselves. And give them a break, you know what I mean? Give them a break, God help us, People sometimes can be a little upset about something, and why are you not understanding this? You should be, because if the baby poops on you, as my baby or anybody has, it's, what is that? That's just the beauty of being where things are, that's all. You're just in front of God. But it doesn't mean like Jesus didn't drive anybody out. The money changes from being in the temple, which really should occur. You know what I mean? People are sort of upset, about the money changes then, and still the story is today. But so a red light on the dashboard, that's all, it's like blink, blink, blink. That's all. It's like a little bit of a red flag. But you should really focus on what your outcome is and keep that in there, and then focus on what underlying outcome and resource is, rather than what the problem is. Focus on what the resource is, what outcomes you actually have, what aim you actually have, and what the response is that would be important for you to feel that communication is existing. All right? So that's step one. It's just thinking about anything that's come up a little bit like a red light. Step two really is you're really, first of all, making sure that you're in a resource state as you can, like we're talking about, because you need to be able to have all your creativity and everything there. And if you don't, stop what you're doing just for the moment, pause, go to something that is resourceful, and as you're with this that's resourceful, things will come to you. But all the tears that you would cry would never move the destiny of the breadth of a single hair. You know what I mean? So, we've got to be more with actually really where we are. If a roof is leaking, we've got to be focused on where the roof is leaking, Make sure that we have time enough, because I'd really love to bring up some news items, that we could talk a bit about, and talk a bit about the language and have whole brain functioning. But this is a program all about how you're keeping yourself company and being able to recognise this eye awareness in our leaders' language and this sort of thing, and what are they doing and how are they about things. But as you really are more in your interested beingness and resourcefulness, is you have your whole self. So then it's possible to be able to look at what sort of really happened. People could have said, "Oh, you're the control freak." They could have said, "You're always manipulating things," and they could have said, "Oh, you lazy slob," or something, blah blah, or something. "Hey, wait a minute, I wore that, and you didn't," something or whatever, and that made me mad. So you could look at this, and first you'll see that unless somebody's really in their balanced self and they've said something balanced, it's like really contortions of the face, that's all. So the medicine woman, or the medicine man, just looks through a lens and just sees everything just contortions of the face of the same cloth. Some people jumping up and down, other people are smiling, other people are sad, some people are just like blank. You've got all of these things going on. It's just really contortions of the face. And if you don't say anything, that's actually communication. If you do say something, that's communication. Everything is really communication. So you really need to do what you can to look clearly and imagine you're able to do this more now through your omnipresent self. And what would Happy Face do, or what would this living Christ within you do? What would Tankashila do, or what would Christ do, or what would Muhammad do, or what would Krishna do, or what would someone do in this realm? Step 3 then, after you've looked at this clearly a little bit, is take sort of responsibility for anything which is something, for instance, which is the truth. So if whatever's left is something that came from yourself, that's something you're saying inside yourself, not anybody else, because you can't have anybody else voice or telling what to do. It has to be your voice. What are you saying? But then sometimes you're saying something and it's like, oh, yeah. But ask yourself what's beneficial about this. If there's nothing beneficial about it, drop it, okay? You have to drop it. So chatter is a feeling, chatter is a sound, chatter is sights, and it's all stuff that could be going on, and it's not really allowing you to really know where you are. You're driving a flat strap still, even though there's red lights in front. People are about to cross, but you're going flat strap toward them still, crossing over the road right upon them. You're not even aware how anxious they are in your driving. You're completely oblivious. You stop it, to drop people off, and you park right at the corner, and so nobody's able to get through, get past you, or anything, you see, and you wanted somebody to get out at the corner. People are unaware of others, and these are my baby, you know what I mean? But they continue to act and are unaware of others fully because they're not able to even know their own self. But if you can clear away the chatter, then you can know yourself. And sometimes the mind was so destroyed that all of a sudden you just will get rid of it. It's just useless. And then a person became eye-aware because of it. So take responsibility. That would be step 3. What could you do to assist? Because it's up to the mature person, not the immature. And focus on and have attention where your attention could have shifted. Don't go to should, bad, good, right, wrong. Meet someone in a field beyond right and wrong, because this is your baby. You have to be mutually with beneficialness, because if you're not, you're not. And so anybody's story, if they're not with what's mutually beneficial in their story, like if Tavistock or Tavistock and Reuters decides they're going to have a Palestinian leader's message or Obama's message to everybody, it's a bit of a twisted stuff, and it definitely often is not any whole brain function pattern, because who amongst them knows anything about this at all? It's just a phantom and a corporation, and it's not even a person, a being, you see. So that's a problem. But take responsibility and focus on what is sensory specific. Remain with your resource state as you can as you're focusing on things, and clear away all shoulda, woulda, coulda stuff, because that's not only going to trigger things more, and you're making things worse. What we're talking about is more compassionate being, which is meeting somebody where they are and finding a way to celebrate, which celebration is the key component of compassion as far as this is concerned. But why would you not, as a leader, have compassionate communication and make sure of this? Would you do it because the stress of it, or would you just be running around because you just don't know? But I think that Atlantean time certainly was a far sophisticated time, but it was fallen into rack and ruin because you've really got a phantom being allowed. So, the best thing to do is to be able to put a framework around things that creates meaningfulness for what you're looking at and what's the positive, adaptive reason why someone's acting the way they are. And you have to start to focus on framing things positively. You can't have words like non-violent, for instance, communication. You really have to be able to teach people how to put things, what's first is first and what's second is second. And the word holy, for instance, can't be put with world, really. These things are not really correct at all, But if you can't be aware that you need to be able to, in creating a state of being, to have sovereignness in yourself everywhere where you are, then you can't have it in any cell. Every cell buys every other cell. And if you, as the Count, has only ever had Stockholm Syndrome yourself, just even Plato did, so relax, you know what I mean? Things I've heard the United Nations say about taking kids away from their parents, citing Plato. It's true. Plato certainly and others said a lot of stuff which was completely wrong, and certainly had a bit of Stockholm Syndrome themselves, but we could relax and stop blaming, but be focused where there is a great need, and not be thinking that you have to pump up some strength somewhere, which is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Do what you can to kind of assist to help create expectant trust around the medicine person by healing things. But don't jump up in the boat because you're crossing the river with somebody and they're mad at the medicine person, and you jump up in a manner that other than allows everybody to have their safety in the boat. But if you allow people to cross in the boat and things are said about this teaching, which on the journey as you come, you're allowed people to say stuff which was really wrong, actually. And that's what you're doing. You see, and that also is danger. So they both are danger, you see. You need to really look at what more is actually really can assist and heal up and be healed, and be aware wherever there is a mixed evaluation could have been going on of blame statement and that sort of thing, because that's only going to have triggered aversion and tegmentum and amygdala function of the brain, and that can have neurologically inhibited the septal region, which connects your whole brain together. And so that if you only had aversion in your feeling state, and that was your preferred mode of sorting information by polarizing, by sorting for the opposite, what doesn't fit, what's obscure, what's not, don't, won't, can't, should, must, try, but, only. Wow. A horror. A horror. And anyway, but you come to someone who really can give you proper assistance and guidance, but only come that you care very much, right, for your own personal development. And if you're not here about your own personal development, then why are you here? If you could say to me, I don't want to go there, and that's the place where you really, a state of being in yourself which could be freed up, you should go there. Why not? And we should really be encouraged to focus on this. So step 4, get rid of all of that blame stuff. Reframe things and put a framework around it that creates meaningfulness and work within what is a common ground to be resolved of things. But if it's not mutually beneficial, you've got rid of it completely, because, you know, only something could be mutually beneficial, right? But if you go on to step 5, then it's really then refocusing on any outcome, actually, that you can have other than achieved. And then what's going on? Do you have enough resource to get this? Is it ecological? Is there some framework you need to put around something? One day somebody said to me that their daughter was a little whore and was swearing at me on the phone about her. And when this father came, I said, what do you mean your daughter's a little whore? And he was really mad at me. He wanted to walk out with her. And he said, my daughter's not a little whore. And then he shrunk a little bit because he actually remembered that he called her a little whore, right? And I said, what do you mean your daughter's a little whore? You know, and he was a bit taken back by that. But then he said, she's too young to love. And so I quickly put a framework of love around. I said, does your daughter love you? He says, yes. So he just said he didn't. But now he says he does. I said, what's this about? He said, she's really, really promiscuous. I said, well, okay. Well, let's talk about this in the manner of being in a way that's sensible, because there's a way to talk about this so that people could be in their freedom and be, all right? And then everything could be safe. And that's another story. One day we can talk about that. But in another situation, of course, somebody came and they were a very serious petrol sniffer, and they asked them to bring the family, and when they came, everybody trooped in. And finally, when this person came in, last, of course, I asked that person, you know, what type of petrol did they like? And everybody laughed really hard, you see. They didn't expect that. Also asked, you know, perhaps they could distinguish amongst many different sorts of petrols. And the person laughed again, really, really hard. They all laughed. But what was I doing? I was giving back the person's ability to make decisions themselves, whereas everybody else had related to them like they were didn't have any ability to make a decision, and that's just enabling. And people get with enablers, and they often only allow enablers to be, so they all can be enabled, and how bad is that? But step 5, if you haven't cleared up things, would be to refocus and have what needs be, and be with framing things positively. 2 negatives don't make a positive. You can't have non-violence together. You can't have holy war together. These are oxymorons and called sequential incongruities in language, right? And that's not the language of peace. But I've been teaching the language of peace in San Diego, California, and all over the world since the 70s, and then people got a little bit of it in places. I was in Santa Cruz, and then there was an author there that wrote a little book and then talked a little bit about God being inside you as well, which a lot of people hadn't thought about at all. And then a book came out a bit about this teaching, but just only a little bit of it. And but you're going to determine your needs, refocus on that. That's step 5. Step 6, you can find out what's the doing that's going on behind what's not occurring. Is there some doing which is going on behind what's not occurring? You have to really be able to find what the positive adaptive reason is, if there is something, and then reframe that to bring that back into a focus more of what you're caring about. You know, step 7 can be really think more a clear activeness and get support statements from people around you, and get a statement of support and things, and then future pace things yourself even to make things ever more powerful, that you could see things in the future working. You could focus on what the other people's missingness is and their feeling and their need and things and what's missing, because then that can cause a greater sense of enlightenment to come to be, you know. And then step 9, you could just decide to go ahead and connect in and frame things positively, and then do things to break the ice a little bit. And then, but if you're willing to really get underway with everything, go ahead, start connecting and talking, because you really are doing what you can to come more from whole brain functioning as you're sort of resourceful, you know. But if Obama doesn't have to have care of people, and that was a message by Reuters, you know, and of Tavistock, or part of the faction of all of that, that whistleblower dissent isn't tolerated, and that a free press is going to be attacked. I don't think that he would really care for that as a press release at all. That doesn't sound to me like that is a proper press release, because it's too negatives in there. Everything is very limited mind function, and whistleblowers and people actually saving the government money, and bounty hunters who are saving the government money and things, in a goat jumping on top of another goat. If the person was the president of that system, you'd always have them saying things that's not a care for government waste. But if somebody was not caring to say something proper for Obama, you know, they could have just come out in the 4 major network, which is really a travesty of the stock, and you should not get your news from there, or if you do, it's wise to, but you could see that it's just simply a phantom, and it's actually the monopoly, and it's the view of the monopoly, and it's certainly not people, all right? That's all. But so Obama having a message that he's other than, and get ready, he's caring for the people, all right? You don't hear the not. If I say don't run across the road, you're only hearing run across the road. If I say stay on this side of the road and play, that's framing things positively. If I say I care to be hygienic, or I say I don't want to be unhygienic, 2 negatives to make a positive is aversion, and I like to be hygienic is whole brain patterning. But if charged as an aiding of the enemy punishable by death, is quite stupid. It really is, because first everybody's trying to find if anybody actually was injured in any way, and nobody's able to come up with anything at all. But we definitely can see that it's a phantom, and if he's not, or a person is not given a remedy, a legal remedy to deal with retaliation, that is not anything that's protection at all. So if you don't care about whistleblowers, that's not going to be good, all right? Less and less people will be voting, because who wants to vote for stupidity when someone's words show you that they're in their whole brain patterning at all right? But whistleblowing extended to the nation, and the whistleblowing laws extend to the national security and intelligence employees. That's very important, but it should be to every person, and as it is to these people, it is to every. That's very important, but it should be to every person, and as it is to these people, it is to every. That's very important, but it should be to every person, and as it is to these people, it is to every. That's very important.